to order the Monday, April 29th, 2019 meeting of the Finance Committee. And, item 1A is referrals by the Board of Directors. And if I understand correctly, the reason why this is back here again is because the board was reluctant to approve the contract for McGee and Page on the terms that call for payments on a certain schedule.
That's correct. Since that time, the terms have been removed out of there, and I believe we've caught up 2 months on payment. I apologize for the background noise here. It's the first lawn mowing of the year that's going on right outside the window. But yeah, outside of that, there's no changes to the scope of work. It's an essential part that is needed in terms of promoting the airport. And you've heard the promotion and the need previously, so I won't go into that further unless you have any questions.
Dave, do you have any other questions about item A?
Is this going to be acceptable to, oh gosh, whatever that
Is it Brianne and Andre?
Yes, it is. We have
You've already talked to them?
talked with them about that, and they understand, and we explained why those terms were changed and removed.
And it seems to me that we do want to be responsible to them. We don't want to neglect addressing their concerns, but that can be negotiated with an eye to the authority's capacity. Do we need to, does this committee need to take any action?
Only to move it back to the full board for action at the May 2nd meeting.
So I would move for approval.
I'll second that. We're both in favor?
Aye. Yep.
It's referred back to the full board then.
Based on the tenor of the last meeting, there were 3 items that were tabled for Finance Committee discussion. The first was Brianne McGee and Andre Page. The second was Advanced Media, and the third was the SOAR grant. The second one is Advanced Media. That's $1,200 per month to implement the campaigns. As you heard last time, this is necessary for forward-looking growth, and that's the key component here as well. One other unrelated thing that has come about since the last meeting, SkyWest also uses Advanced Media, so there will be some synergies there as well. While we're doing something for the airport and they're doing something for SkyWest, we've been able to connect those 2 reps, and now we're going at it together. There isn't any cost savings there, but there will be some advantage to having that firm being used by both entities.
Excellent.
Is that just a monthly contract? Is there, or no terms of the agreement, or sorry, it's for a year, right?
Yeah, we switched that last year to match the terms of the 2 things, to the authority's fiscal year, and also to the terms, in terms of time, to the Canadian marketing team contract, because it's an essential component of that. At one time, just going back in history, this was actually in the Canadian team contract, but as it is its own large, I mean, it's not large, it's $1,200 a month, but as it's its own separate charge, I felt it more appropriate to bust it out into a separate approval, and that's why it's here.
Is there a way to review that in 6 months and get out of that contract if we don't see results? Maybe I'm too short when I say that.
I assume it has cancellation language with it. I would need to specifically review that. Generally, our contracts have 30-day notice provisions associated with them. I would like to, I'd like to research that and get back to you on that one. But there's been no change in any of the terms or conditions or anything in the contract since the last meeting.
Probably we can answer Dave's question at our board meeting.
Yes.
Why don't we forward it to the
Yeah.
board?
So I would approve to move that forward, or I would move to.
Make a motion.
Yes.
I'll second.
You got it.
In favor?
Aye.
And just as an administrative note, I will dig out the early termination language on this, and I will forward it to the committee, so that
Thank you.
that way you have it.
Just to make sure that we're reviewing that and make sure we're getting somewhere.
Absolutely. The campaigns, well, again, we're moving on, but the campaigns have been about 4 times as effective as a traditional campaign, so that's pretty interesting there. The next agenda item is approval of the advertising reimbursement by the SOAR grant. Now, there's a couple things with this one. This is a SOAR grant that the senator helped us get, Senator Ritchie. And the term of this would be from June 2019 through November 2019. All of these items are 100% reimbursable. And you can see the mix between CTV, WWNY, WPBS, Spectrum, Stevens Media, North Country Now, and the Ottawa Citizen. This is mixed and matched here. There are some Canadian funds in there. There's also some US dollars in there as well. This is a grant agreement, as I mentioned, for $68,750. That is reimbursable. We do need to front the money on this, and then we will get the money back when when it is processed. And any time that is, we've seen it as quickly as 30 days sometimes, and sometimes it's 90 days. It all depends on how the state processes things. And it all depends on the number of the phone call, the advocacy, and where it fits in the other items that they're working on at any given time. Be happy to answer any questions that you have about this.
Well, it seems, Dave, as if this is just something we really don't, it'd be very difficult to vote against.
That's right, I agree. But this must have been, I missed the last board meeting, so this came back.
Well, this was deferred because
of the other stuff?
People were worried about the working capital position of the authority and wanted, I think, some deep thought that we could take on a program. Is this a $60,000, $70,000 program, John?
Yeah, 68.
Yeah,
68.
That we could take on a program where we had to front the money and wait 30 to however long it takes to get reimbursed. And it seems to me that this is just appropriate to do, as inconvenient as it sometimes is to be tied up for the money in the interim. And I think that it's the staff's recommendation that we do it.
Yes, it
Do
is.
we understand that correctly?
Mm-hmm. Yes, very, very strongly.
Yes.
The only thing we have to remember is we'll have a decision to make at the end of November this year. Whether to continue that, because it would create a significant increase in our advertising budget without the grant support.
I'm willing to take
As of right now, it's a washout.
Yes.
stand on this right now. This is money that was not budgeted. I would also argue that because we're fortunate to get a grant one time, that one-time usage should not be considered permanent additions to a marketing program.
And that's the way I would look at it, is that this does not imply that we'll continue without grant support.
I don't think anybody's recommended that.
Right. And, if there were a recommendation, we'd have to look at that with all consideration of all the issues that Jim brought up.
So I move for the approval.
I'll second that. In favor?
Second, or aye.
Aye. So we have two
Got a lot
ayes.
rattling in my brain today.
So the next item is agenda item B1. This is a SkyWest marketing update. I apologize, it's kind of hot off the press here. You should have something in front of you that shows $20,000 SkyWest reimbursement eligible. There is a couple things going on here, and I apologize, the technology is not cooperating with me for some reason. So, this is advertising being reimbursed by SkyWest via the Essential Air Service Grant. That is a long-winded explanation of when USDOT awards a Essential Air Service contract. In there is typically money set aside for advertising the Essential Air Service. Now, in this case, SkyWest proposed and USDOT accepted $20,000 annually to promote the service. So, how do you spend it? Well, you want to try and run it through the authority as much as you can. That way, you're tax exempt, and your money goes 8% farther because of the tax, because of not having tax versus private entity. You also need to have a budget developed, and on top of that, this is a nuance with the Essential Air Service program. One of our strongest points, you cannot advertise. So you cannot advertise a $203 round trip to Chicago or $208 round trip to DC. However, you can use words like low cost and things like that. So there's some wordsmithing that has to go on there. So to give you an example, some of the ads in EAS speak, if you will, that's approved by SkyWest United and is eligible for reimbursement under the Essential Air Service program sounds like this. Skip the hassle and fly out of Ogdensburg International Airport for jet service with daily United flights to Chicago and Washington, D.C., operated by SkyWest. With its convenient location in concourse, you're just one step away from anywhere. Book today at united.com. Similar version. Ogdensburg International Airport offers reliable jet service with daily United Express flights to Chicago and Washington, D.C., operated by SkyWest Airlines. Not only is it conveniently located, but Ogdensburg International Airport offers affordable parking, quick screening, and one concourse, leading you to one amazing trip, wherever you want to go. Because with Ogdensburg International Airport, you're just one stop away from anywhere. Book today at united.com. So there's an example of an Essential Air Service reimbursable type commercial. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't want to run your commercial and not mention your most strongest point. And so I'll give an example of one would sound from the authority's point of view that's non-reimbursable. Northern New York, you now have a choice, announcing direct flights from Ogdensburg, New York to Chicago and Washington, D.C. by United Airlines operated by SkyWest. Round-trip airfare is as low as $203 to Chicago O'Hare and $208 to Washington Dulles. With daily departures from Ogdensburg International Airport, the world just got closer. For booking a direct United flight, go to united.com. Choose low-cost parking or extended stay valet parking, then relax because it's a direct flight. Visit ogsair.com today for details. That's ogsair.com. Those two commercials, you can see the difference between them. One is Essential Air Service reimbursable, the other is not. So when you look at the breakdown of the resolution, you'll see everything here is in US dollars. And you'll see a couple things. You'll see it comes to $20,000 down at the bottom. That's because that's the maximum SkyWest reimbursement that's eligible under the program. The OBPA ineligible price ones, that's $1,300. The television for CTV, $7,900. My FM radio in Canada is $3,700 US. WWNY, higher price point, but we want to reach the Watertown market as well, $8,500. WSNN, the eligible portion is $1,200. The ineligible portion is $1,300. So that's why there's the $1,300 credit there that brings it down to $20,000 for reimbursement. Anything that is up in the, so for the CTV or the WWNY price tags, those require separate board approvals. So therefore, that's why I lumped this in here into one resolution, then we can turn around and get reimbursement from SkyWest through the Central Air Service Program. It's kind of a long-winded explanation, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have regarding that. And we'd be looking to start this in May of 2019 to promote the new service at Ogdensburg.
You can't use the SOARS ads for a match?
Nope.
Why?
You can't, because the message, it has to be in the Central Air Service message.
Yeah, we haven't done the ads yet for SOARS.
They can't be, you can't commingle. Unfortunately.
Even if the wording is,
Well, there are lots of grants where they say if there's any other grant funding, basically it doesn't qualify. And I wouldn't be surprised if.
The message on this one, the message through SOARS promotes the airport. The message through the Central Air Service promotes the airline more than the airport.
Sure.
So really, what do you want to say? They're both equally valuable to us for different reasons.
and why does the two need to be separated, the CTV and the, because currently they're not, they're all under this one resolution, right?
I just busted that out in terms of what the equivalent is in US dollars. CTV is Canadian
Right.
television. And so we're doing, what's proposed is about equal amount in the Canadian market and the US market. Conceptually, take the $20,000 that's reimbursable, split it between the US and Canada.
And those would be, these would be all BPA ads, or some of all?
They would sound like the Essential Air Service message. They would be that type of flavor in the first set of commercials.
Do I understand correctly that we're talking about authorizing, in addition to reimbursable expenditures, having the OBPA spend $1,300 on advertising?
Yes,
It's not reimbursable?
yes, correct. I mean, that's something we would be on the hook for regardless. That's something that you don't normally see that because of the dollar amounts. So for example, we ran the $1,200 commercial series back during the holiday season, promoting the 2-for-1, for example, in that promotion.
Well, it seems to me that one context into which I look at these things, they look like big buys when I look at the dollars. But when I was working in radio, I had an auto dealer who spent over $1 million a year on advertising. You know, $100,000 a month. Wow. I mean, a single location store in Oneonta. So this probably doesn't come anywhere close to Billy Fusillo's budget. And I think, let's go to it. Gotta promote that airport, that air service.
And
Glad that we're getting some help.
one thing I forgot to mention, I was able to leverage WSNN coverage by putting the ineligible ads with the eligible ads for reimbursement, and we get a bigger bang for our buck as well there too.
Quantity discount?
Yes.
Yeah.
Folks I didn't have much luck in negotiating with is WWNY in terms of getting the price down. And again, there's not a lot of competition in that
That's right.
in that market.
That's right.
So I would move that we approve this to the board.
I think that's excellent. I'll second that. So, in favor?
Aye.
Vote aye. That takes care of the items that were in.
Next up, there's under the airport, there's 2 of 3 non-exclusive rental car concession agreement and leases. One is with Blevins and one is with Countrywide. The third one is still in the process of being worked on. There's a commonality between the two. So agenda item B2, this is with Blevins Brothers. There is a $35 per month ground rent per stall fee, and there's 10% gross receipts in these non-exclusive rental car concession agreements. However, Blevins is literally right on the other side of the airport, so they don't need any stalls. So as part of a non-exclusive concession agreement, you want to make sure it's fair for everybody. So how do you do that? We came up with a methodology that says, okay, there will be a recovery fee of $10 per vehicle that you, Blevins, will charge for the rental transactions, and it will be called the recovery fee. And at the end of the day, that puts you on equal footing with the non-exclusive car rental concession agreement of a competitor. That way, Company A doesn't have an advantage over Company B. And why do we do that? The reason we do that is that is kind of a nuance of some of the requirements of the airport being funded with some federal dollars. It's buried in our grant assurances.
What did you call those insurances, Willie?
Our grant assurances, the FAA grant assurance. So the third one that isn't here will have some combination, some other combination that keeps it equal between the 3 companies. But on the Blevins one, on B2, specifically concession fee of 10% of gross receipts and a $10 recovery fee per vehicle rental transaction.
Is that what I'm trying to remember what that was before. It's pretty similar, are they?
The fee on Blevins was $5 before, and the concession fee was still at 10%. The other important thing about this, it does allow us in the future to charge a customer facility charge in the future. These are one-year agreements. They are now, well, when approved, they become the standard agreement for the airport for concessionaire, car concession agreements, non-exclusive car concession agreements.
Do you have any questions about that?
Nope, I'm good. Do you want them approved separately, or?
Yeah, for good order, we should probably approve B2 and then B3 separately.
So I would move to approve the Blevins car rental agreement.
I'll second that. In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So we'll move that to the full board for approval.
Yes.
B3 is the same type of thing. This is with Countrywide. Ground rental, $35 per stall. Concession fee, 10% gross receipts. Changes on this one, the rental per stall, there are more stalls. This customer chose to also rent a stall over on the general aviation side of the airport as well to help support the GA side of the field.
Mm-hmm.
In addition, they took an extra stall on the parking lot outside of the terminal, closest to the terminal as well. They're up to 6 on that side.
Very good.
And the only question, which isn't related to this, but I thought of is, do they book through the SkyWest United site when they book these rental cars, or?
They can.
They can?
The customer, the airlines have relationships with corporate partners. Let's talk about Allegiant, for example. Allegiant has a corporate contract with Enterprise. So if there's no Enterprise around, the Allegiant customer goes on and they can't see what rental companies are here. They have to find out through social media or call the airport, and, you know, at that point, we say, well, there's 3 of them here. There's Countrywide, there's Blevins, there's, you know, Company X that's coming on the field. The agreement with the third company that we're talking about, that's not here before you today, is the corporate partner of United. So that, it's got an opportunity to open up some real doors for us there as well. It's kind of a long-winded explanation.
That's all right, that's fine, just a question. So I would approve the countrywide. Credit card.
I'll second that. In favor?
Aye.
Aye. Agreement moved to the board. Forwarded to the board.
All right. Next up would be item B4. This is an into-plane fuel discussion. With each airline that's here, they have their own into-plane fuel agreements. We don't yet have SkyWest. We know what the dollar amount is. We've negotiated a dollar amount of $175 per turn. And we'll have an into-plane fueling agreement ready for the board approval, hopefully on May 2nd. We're literally just waiting for the document to come from SkyWest. This is very similar in nature to the into-plane fueling agreement that we have with Allegiant, and by comparison, that's $225 per turn.
Help me understand, that sounds like some specific language when you call it an into-plane fueling agreement. Does this mean anything other than putting fuel into the airplane?
It's, you know, 6 or 7 page agreement that spells out who's responsible for what, how it all works, what audit procedures and everything are covered, what the safety regs are. What else am I missing, Stephanie? What else is in there?
That's the basis of it, the auditing procedures, actually the fueling of the aircraft and the safety procedures.
Mm-hmm. And it must be a standard industry term.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
Fine.
And that would occur every time the plane takes fuel, and, you know, with a schedule, we anticipate that the plane will probably take fuel twice a day. So it'll add up. And this is something that was not envisioned when we were looking at the benefits of SkyWest. So this is a substantial number attached to this.
And did we have an agreement like that with Cape Air?
Cape Air was a little bit different because they didn't take on the volume of fuel, and they were fueling at other places because of the size of the tank. This uses Jet A, which leverages our capacity on the field with our 2 trucks and our large tank. So it's really, I mean, it's apples and pumpkins. I mean, not even close in terms
Well,
of.
it sounds to me, if I understood those numbers correctly, as if that could mean tens of thousands of dollars annually, and somewhere in the $90,000 or $100,000 range.
Yeah, that's correct, because,
That's about $2,100 a week.
Yeah. That is certainly significant.
$25,000 revenue.
Yeah.
Well, as long as we make it happen.
In that case, I'm all for it.
That's right.
Our folks are all trained and ready to fuel.
That's great.
And their audit has been passed. They were here and did the inspection on our trucks and our tanks.
Did
And
SkyWest do that, or who?
SkyWest comes in with their folks and does an inspection, and that's been done.
Well, that
You
makes
do,
sense.
does
that they
Allegiant
would
do
want
the same,
to.
must be, I
Yes,
presume.
Allegiant does
Each
it.
airline
and-
does, probably?
Yes, and Allegiant's annual inspection is on the 8th of May, but we don't anticipate any trouble because everything's, industry standards just about the same. They have a
Sure.
few little nuances in the paperwork, but other than that, they're pretty much the same.
That's a good point too, just to elaborate on that briefly. I mean, we're required under regulation to have, to obey the standards, for lack of a better term. And then each individual airline that comes in here has, as you mentioned, its own little nuances associated with it. So even if there were no, let's say there were no SkyWest, there were no Allegiant, there was no Cape Air, we still have to meet the standards and keep everything up to snuff.
Well, it appears to me that this is presented for information as opposed to action.
That's correct. I just wanted to brief you on it. It would show up as an other such matters item probably at the board.
Excellent.
If it comes in time.
Excellent.
So no action recorded there.
Shall we move on to the next item?
Absolutely. Agenda item C1 is a significant document, and this is the approval of lease agreement with GSA. It's an agreement between the Ogdensburg Bridge and Port Authority and GSA. And, you know, I'd be out of line if I didn't compliment John Reach for achieving the impossible on this one. The government
Absolutely, John.
is difficult on occasion to deal with, and this is a 20-year agreement that, you know, it's substantial. There's over, you know, over $1 million, what is it, $1.9 million, John, associated with this? Something along that?
Yeah, a little
Per year?
Yeah. 1,081,000.
So it's, you know, there's endless amounts of government paperwork associated with this that were successfully navigated. Lease is in its final form. It's been reviewed by council. 20-year term associated with it at the rates, terms, and conditions that you see before you. Not much to say on that other than great job making it happen. And that goes to the whole team, everybody who was, you know, doing financial analysis on this, to all the schedules that were prepared for this with John, negotiating endlessly with this. How many hours you got into this?
Well, it actually started almost 2 years ago with disputing the rental agreement, so it's a lot of.
Substantial amount of time.
Yeah.
Good job. I don't have any concerns. Council's taken a final review on it, doesn't have any concerns or additions.
Dave, I don't know whether you're aware, but the initial proposal from the GSA was
Much lower, right?
a quarter?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Isn't that incredible? Don't take the first offer.
No.
So with your permission, I'd like to move that forward to the.
So I would move the approval of that
I'll second.
forward to the board.
Yes. Let's cast our eyes in favor.
Aye.
So now to some of the financial related things that need to be in the finance meeting. Jim, you want to walk us through the internal control audit and status update, please?
Certainly we can. I'll try to be brief so my throat folds out throughout the whole meeting. Internal control audits, we are finalizing tomorrow the fuel inventory for primarily the airport. The port and the bridge keep pretty meticulous records, so it'll be much less review with those. The fuel inventory is a result of Bolo leaving the field last May and then just not having much of a system to keep track of how we were doing. So that's going to be a little bit more challenging for us to end up with the right numbers. From here, moving forward, we should be good. So next on the docket will be the lease income, industrial park, and this building, and some of the leases at the port, which we will intend on doing in July.
Jim, given your voice situation, anything that's on paper, feel free to just refer to the paper if that's
Okay.
appropriate, and anything that you've sent us, unless you want to highlight specific things, you just refer to the document.
Okay. Should be okay with my vitamin C drops.
Good.
If my voice stops and I start coughing,
Yeah.
I'll have to excuse myself.
Okay.
So any other questions on the internal control process?
Just a quick compliment on the fuel inventory. We were able to get blood out of a rock, congratulations. And we did receive payment for some long overdue GSE fuel. Jeff?
Oh, yes. I don't know if that was me, but Stephanie's been working on
Everybody's saying
that. We're looking at a lot of internal control type things with charging and billing, collection.
Wade, I know that some of these, some of the timetables on these audits are different from your original request. Are you comfortable and okay with these as they're working out now?
You know, when it comes to internal controls, I want to make sure that everything is good yesterday. I think given the
Understood.
given the plan that was laid out last time, I think it was acceptable. The accounting department is meeting those revised goals.
Yep.
And I think one of the things that I find encouraging is as they're working through these things, they are finding some things and they're correcting them immediately. I mean, case in point is that fuel inventory that we're talking about on the GSE side
Sure.
of things. And that, while I'd like to see them yesterday, that type of reaction and the fact that they're on the ball and doing what they need to do, I think is encouraging. I'm curious to see on the lease income, what we find, because I know that, for example, your staff has been looking ahead on easements and things like that, and has found some things in the easements that we haven't been billing for.
Yeah.